Moira MacDonald, Parish Minister here in Edinburgh and convener of the Presbytery Review Committee. Moderator, in the Disney film Snow White, the Queen is accustomed to asking her mirror, who is the fairest of them all? And the mirror wisely replies that she, the Queen, is the fairest. Peace prevails until the mirror, sworn to tell the truth, replies one day that Snow White is now the fairest. And the Queen, jealous and angry, resolves to get rid of Snow White by fair means or foul, in order that she, the Queen, might hear the answer she wants to hear, that she is indeed the fairest. Sometimes we look into a mirror and we're surprised at what we see and hear. In the newly formed Presbytery Review Committee, not yet a year old, we were remitted to ask questions of our fellow ministers and elders from presbyteries that were themselves not much older than a year, not to catch them out and make them squirm, but instead to hold up a mirror that would help them, the presbyteries, and us, the committee, have a real look at the whats and whys and hows and wheres of presbytery life in 2024. To see ourselves as we are, acknowledging struggles and questions, celebrating good practice and success stories, recognizing areas of strength and areas of weakness, so that whatever answer came back to us, it was one that allowed good practice to flourish, struggles to be seen and supported, questions answered, and possibilities shared. And we asked those questions of our two pilot presbyteries, Perth and Edinburgh and West Lothian. So we asked questions of ourselves at the same time as a committee. What was our purpose? How might we help rather than hinder? What did we need to ask in order to hear the truth? And what did we need to change about ourselves in response to the visits that we made to the two presbyteries? Our thanks goes first of all to those two pilot presbyteries, Perth and Edinburgh and West Lothian, for their cooperation and helpfulness, for their reflections and their honesty. Our thanks too to the Principal Clerk's Office, who kept us on the right track, and to the members of the committee working together to craft relevant questions and gather appropriate documents, visiting and speaking with presbyters and compiling information. We expect that this will be an ongoing process for the Presbytery Review Committee, one that evolves and develops as we move forward. We're very conscious that we visited two new presbyteries. One, Edinburgh and West Lothian, which was the union of two presbyteries. The other, Perth Presbytery, formed from the coming together of 5 presbyteries. So both presbyteries face challenges of geography, habit, and identity. We're conscious too that we visited 2 presbyteries in the midst of presbytery planning, implementing decisions made in legacy presbyteries and now incorporating those decisions in bigger areas. As a committee, we are also charged with carrying out an inspection of the records of all presbyteries. Again, we're grateful to the 2 pilot presbyteries for working with us in this regard. We're trying to develop a procedure which will achieve what we're required to do without involving too great a burden, and we'll be in contact with all presbyteries in due course to take forward this work. Summaries of the reports are in the Assembly papers, but could I draw attention to a few points? Sometimes the simplest things have the biggest impact, and Perth Presbytery's Friday Roundup, an email sent weekly to all presbyters containing news and information, has brought an identity and a cohesion to an otherwise widespread and new family. Finding the right kind of meeting at the right time in the right place has been invaluable for both presbyteries, reflecting the needs of presbyters and setting the tone for meetings. Both presbyteries are in the early days of finding an identity, yet are open to change and experiment. and this is proving valuable in including as wide a range of people as possible, as well as building effective working relationships between colleagues. We heard of concerns at the number of interim moderators needed in both presbyteries, as vacancies are yet to be filled. And some of our colleagues are choosing not to play a part in the life and the work of their presbytery. It's expected, it's expected that as life in these new presbyteries beds down, then some of these concerns will be overcome, and the work of mission and discipleship will be at the forefront of presbytery life, rather than the initial internal workings of coming together. Moderator, if we're holding up a mirror to the life and the work of presbyteries, if we're honestly seeking to ask how we're doing, then it's important to mention the sense of weariness that we detected. Weariness following the changes in life after COVID and lockdown. Weariness following mergers and unions of presbyteries and the work involved in bringing different habits and practices and expectations together. Weariness and concern expressed from presbyters about the workload of clerks and their teams. Weariness about presbytery mission planning and an eagerness to get on with being the church rather than organising the church. In some places, we heard more than weariness, we heard exhaustion. And I would urge commissioners this week to take that sense of weariness and exhaustion into consideration when some decisions are asked of us as a church. We look forward as a committee to visiting 2 different presbyteries this year and the next, to hearing their stories, reflecting with them how life is in their part of Scotland, and celebrating and supporting their work and worship. Moderator, I am not a commissioner, and so I ask the Principal Clerk to move this deliverance.
I so move.
Seconded. Thank you, Moira. Are there any questions to the convener on the report as a whole? Oh, David Ingalls. Up here.
Convener, thank you. I'm very glad to hear you. Sorry, David Ingalls, 314. Very glad to hear the report, and thank you for all the work you've done. The point you just made, though, is something I think we need to stop and consider. This weariness and exhaustion. A great amount of the work that is done in congregations, presbyteries, even up at this level, is done by volunteers. These are just members of the congregation who have got roped into doing this, that, and the other. If we continually overload these volunteers, you won't get replacements for them, because other people see, oh, that guy's, he's run off his feet doing this, he's run off his feet doing that. As a church, we have to nurture these people and look to the future of how we're going to replace them. I look round my session and all the work that they do, and some of them they're in the building every day. Most of them are in their late 70s or early 80s. In 10 years' time, they are not going to be there, and we are doing nothing to encourage people to step up and take this forward. If we don't nurture our volunteers, we're going to have to start paying people to do these jobs. And we can't afford it. So please, please, please think of what you're asking people to do. Thank you.
We have a question from Alex Shuttleworth and then a comment from John Ferguson.
Alex Shuttleworth, Presbytery Clerk, number 261, Presbytery Clerk of Fife. It's actually more of a comment than a question. I think I've maybe pressed the wrong button. But it's always nice to bring reassurance and answers to questions which are asked to General Assembly the answer to which is the fairest of them all is Fife. Thank you very much indeed.
So the convener is not required to give the answer. Right. John Ferguson.
Thank you, Moderator. John Ferguson, 283, Presbytery Clerk of Perth. It was simply briefly to thank the committee for their visit to Perth Presbytery. I think the way in which they went about it was constructive, it was well thought through, and I felt that as well as encouraging us, they did also challenge us as well. And there were one or two aspects which we think could have been improved, and we passed on these points to the committee. But generally, we thought it was a very worthwhile exercise, and I would strongly recommend this process going forward. I think it's a very positive move for the church and for presbyteries. Thank you, Moderator.
Thank you, John. There being no further questions or comments? No, you're not showing up on my screen. Can we receive the report first and then we'll get you sorted? Oh, it's on number 2. Oh, right. So, does the Assembly receive the report? And online? Yeah. Okay, section 2. Derek.
Moderator Derek Browning, number 4. I'm a bit worried about this Snow White analogy. That means I'm Prince Charming, I suspect. Anyone who goes down the dwarf route can stop if they say grumpy. However, Moderator, if I can say on behalf of the Presbytery of Edinburgh and West Lothian, and this is a comment, and I speak for myself as business convener of that Presbytery, and with the support of our Presbytery clerk, Hazel Hastie, and to echo what John Ferguson has said, yes, it is a huge amount of work that we're asked to do when it comes to the Presbytery Review, but it was one of the most positive experiences I've ever had in long association with the Presbytery. The review was carried out with graciousness and kindliness and insight, and we learned something about ourselves that we would not have learned had we not embarked upon this process. So yes, to those who are about to have the review, gird your loins. It is quite rigorous, but it will be one of the most positive things you will have done. You'll learn something about not only what you're doing, but what you might still do in the name of Jesus Christ in your presbytery. And I strongly commend this committee and its hard work over the last year, and wish them all the very, very best for the future. Thank you, Moderator.
I'm sure the convener is delighted to hear that. So, section 2, do we approve? And online. Section 3? And online. Section 4? And online. The report as a whole. Deliverance as a whole. And online. Thank you to Moira and her committee.